So remember that Euler's formula. Remember that Euler's formula is a nice, easy way to check your numbers. So for example, if you got a wrong number of faces, edges, or vertices in that warm-up, then more than likely you were not then checking your work with that Euler's formula trick. Make sure you do that. It's a really easy way to identify whether or not you've had issues. Quarterly tests. So I played with a bunch of different versions of a curve, and the one that I basically settled on, which I thought was most fair and ended up with a class average that was a B, which I think is a reasonable class average, was basically however many you got wrong, you just multiply it times 3 and subtract from 100. Okay? So each one that you got wrong, you multiply that times 3 and subtract from 100. So in other words, if you got 4 wrong, which basically means how many points it's curved is how many number of questions that you missed, because it should be 4 points apiece, but I only counted them 3 points apiece. Okay? So if you missed 8, you should have gotten a 68. Instead, you have 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 3 is 24, 76. Okay? So you went up 8 points. Okay? Now, again, if after that you still did not reach an 80, then that just means you're going to retest next week. Okay? Well, the retest probably on Tuesday. I'm going to make the retest over the weekend. And that's it.
So if you missed 4, what was your percentage?
I have no idea. You can't do the 4 times 3 and subtract from 100.
What do you multiply? 4 times 3?
They're 3 points apiece.
That would be 8.
Oh my gosh, I'm really not going to tell you what it is. You're in compacted math. They're 3 points apiece now. That's the formula. They're 3 points apiece. Got it? Yes, Andrew?
What if you get 0 wrong until you check?
No one did.
No, what if you get something like that?
You get an 80. You can retest up to an 80. That's why if you made an 80 or above, there's no point in taking a retest because you can't improve your score. Retests for the district, by the way, that's the way they work, at least until you get to high school. In high school, they actually get a little bit more restrictive. So for like a pre-AP class in high school, you can only retest up to a 75. For an AP class, you can only retest to a 70. So it becomes a little bit more difficult in high school. But we just use the blanket 80% thing. Okay? Does that make sense? So if you made an 80 or above, don't retest because you can't really improve your grade. If you made below an 80, retest, because if you get at least an 80 on the retest, then your whole grade moves to an 80. And that's the way retests work. Okay? It will probably only be about a 10 to 12 question retest. Just like the one, like some of y'all came in yesterday to take the Unit 6 retest after school yesterday. So that was mostly open-ended questions, which is typical of my retest. My retests are not multiple choice. They're typical open-ended questions. Okay? So, any questions on all that? Yes, sir.
So you gave me the grade sheet that had my 100 summative on it, but you never put it on hand.
Yes, I did.
I looked at last.
It's not visible in Hack, but it's in Hack. Remember when I printed them out?
Yeah. Yeah, but my grade didn't change at all. It's not visible to everyone else.
I mean, we can talk about, since that's just a you thing, that'll probably be something we want to talk about later, not in front of the whole group. But everyone who participated in UIL got their 100 summative. It's just not published. Can you? Usually you can just see them when they were printed. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. By the way, yes.
When are you going to enter in the monument? Or is that already?
It'll be put in over the weekend. That's a good question. The monument stuff will finally be entered over the weekend, and then I'll be done with it.
That's just formative, right?
No, it's a half a summative. Yeah. No, it's way more than a formative.
5%. Half a summative is 35.
No, that's not the way it works.
Oh, yeah.
That's bad math. All of your formative grades averaged together represents 30% of your grade. All of your summative grades averaged together represents 70% of your grade. So any summative is significantly more weighted than your formative. Yes, sir. Do what, Jaden? Well, it still contributes to the grade that represents 70% of your grade.
No, not why did.
Well, when I said any, I actually meant any. A-N-Y. It means any. Okay, it's close. Okay, here we go. Phones away. Andrew? I don't care. If you want to ask for permission to do that, you're welcome to. When I say phones away, I mean actually phones away. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about. Yesterday we learned about three-dimensional objects. We learned about the fact that there are three categories of three-dimensional objects that we're going to be concerned about. One are two-base guys, one are one-base guys, and one are no-base guys. Someone give me an example of a two-base guy. A two-base three-dimensional object, Leilani? A cube is a two-base object. Outstanding. Gavin?
A rectangular prism.
A rectangular prism is a two-base object. Christopher? Any prism. Outstanding. Any prism is a two-base object. Hatai? A cylinder is also a two-base system. What's the requirement for bases? Someone tell me what you wrote down, hopefully, Cameron, with regard to base. They are congruent and opposite. Bases for a prism are congruent and opposite one another. And there are only two. If you ever find an object with more than two bases, you have screwed up. Okay? Because two is the most number of bases you can have. Okay? Any questions on two-base objects? Single-base objects. Someone give me an example of a single-base object. Dakota, give me a single-base object. A cone is a single-base object, right? Ciara? A pyramid. A pyramid. Tara, help us remember how we find the base. What's the rule on the base of a single base guy? You find the common vertex and you look opposite that. You find the common vertex and you look opposite that. And there's only one family of no base objects. Amaya, what is it? It's a spahir. Or a sphere if you're British. Okay? Yeah, it's a spahir or a sphere if you're British. Okay? No, spahir. Yes. Yes. So anywho, so those are our objects. Now, what we're going to learn about today, there are three important measurements that you must learn to get from any object with a base or with at least one base. There are three particular measurements I want you to get from any object with a base. And they are this, this, and this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what those things represent. It's capital B, capital P, and H. And they don't necessarily represent what you think they do. You have a question, Alex? I only want a question. I don't want one of your observations. Okay.
Does the H have to be lowercase?
No. Because that would be heart rate, and that would be health class, not math. Okay. Capital B stands for area of the base. Well, I just wrote it. Capital B stands for area of the base. Now, by the way, that doesn't matter if there's one base or two bases. You find the area of one of them. That's why it's important that you can identify the bases. And in fact, I will tell you that one of the first things I'm going to have you do when you get a three-dimensional object is I'm going to have you, if they're not already shaded, shade the bases or the base. I want you to shade the base or the bases. That's a critically important part of the process. It's a critically important part of the process. And part of that is just so you can find the proper formula, because if it's a single base object, then you're either dealing with a pyramid or a cone, and if it's a two-base object, you're either dealing with a prism or a cylinder, because those are the primary shapes for two-base and one-base systems. So capital B stands for area of the base. Capital P stands for the perimeter of the base. The perimeter of the base. Exact same thing, by the way. Only one base matters. So even if there are two bases, I only want the perimeter of one of them. Even if there are two bases, I only want the perimeter of one of them. Leilani? Well, we're not there yet. It is lowercase h. Yep. Because the Greeks said it's not going to be, and since the Greeks invented mathematics, we kind of go with what they say. It's the same reason m represents slope. I don't know why that is, but it is. So I guess I'll default to the parent because I said so and stick with that. Why do I have to make my bed if I'm just going to get in it tonight? Because I said so. Do what? It is good. You just lay back the sheets. You turn on your ceiling fan. You allow the wind to go for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then you make your bed like I told you to. Next. That's not my problem. It's not like your life is all that busy. Wake up 30 minutes earlier. Figure it out. Or you can do like I told my son, which one day I just took away his sheets. I literally took all of his bedding. I was like, okay, sleep on the mattress if you're so averse to making it. There's no fear. Fair. Yeah, I took my son's doors off his hinges one time. Yeah, he slammed his door one time, and I went, oh. Yeah, my son slammed the door one time because he got into an argument with his mom and went in his room and slammed the door. So I went to the garage, and I got my hammer and my screwdriver. I opened his door. He's like, what do you want? I was like, nothing. What are you doing? Taking your door. Because
My dad just took all the furniture out of her room, put a mattress in there, and then gave her 3 ham sandwiches and said, that's your food for the day.
There you go. I told my son, I was like, I was offended that you would abuse your door in such a way. And because I'm a lover of doors, I'm going to protect your door and take it away from you so that you don't slam it anymore. You door abuser, you. How long do I, yeah, he goes, how long do I not get a door? I was like, oh, I don't know. I bet it's going to be a while. Welcome to no privacy. I think it was like 2 weeks. Yeah, and by the way, for like a freshman teenage boy not to be able to close his door. Bennett? See, right? Okay, so here we go. Area of the base, perimeter of the base. Now, Leilani said, what about H? And I want to talk about H for just a quick moment because it's something that gets misinterpreted often. It gets misinterpreted often. So I'll use this analogy. If, Gavin, come here. Let's, my little street self. Okay, so if I were to measure Gavin's height, I would literally measure from his feet to the top of his head, right? Now, if I were to ask Gavin, just listen, if I were to ask Gavin to lay down on the carpet, which I'm not going to, but just pretend that Gavin's laying on the carpet, does he all of a sudden become this tall?
No.
Why not? Go sit. Did he get shorter when he laid down? No, he didn't. And it's because we measure height from essentially base to base. So when we talk about the little letter H, I don't want you to use the term height because a lot of y'all have been trained in elementary school to always measure height like this. It's not. It's the distance between the bases. The height, H actually represents distance between the bases. Now, some of you will say, but what if it's only a single base system? Then it's the distance between the base and the what? Common vertex. So it's either distance between the bases or distance between the base and the common vertex. And that's very, very, very important to keep in mind, and I'll tell you why. I want you to think for a moment about a triangular prism, okay? So I have a triangular prism, which I'm just going to sketch out really quickly. Now, there are 2 of these in a triangular prism. Everyone watch real quick. One of them is right here. Why is this the height, Alex? Because it's the distance between this base and this base. It's the distance between that base and that base. Now here's the problem. There's another h in this object. If I were finding the area of one of the bases, how do you find the area of a triangle? Base times height divided by 2. So all of a sudden there's also an h right here, and they're not the same.
That was capital. I get it now.
No, it's not capital. You don't, because it's lowercase.
Oh, the other one, the height one is.
No, that's a lowercase h. The uppercase looks like this, and the lowercase looks. Remember that? Remember it was like G, G, I. So anyway, right? No, and that's the problem. That's part of the problem. And no kidding, it's something that confuses the kids a lot. Because if I ask you to find the distance between the bases, then I'm talking about this measurement right here. If I'm asking you to find the area of the base, then you end up using this because it's base times height divided by 2. So it's very, very important that you kind of, when we're talking about three-dimensional objects and the little h, I want you to refer to it as the distance between the bases. I want you to refer to it as the distance between the bases. It'll just help make things okay. Any questions on that?
What do we refer to height as?
Do what?
What do we refer to height for the triangle as if you have that shading?
Well, I'll show you how we're going to work around that.
Okay.
So, for example, on number 1, if I were to ask you to shade the bases, if I were to ask you to shade the bases, where, Anastasia, are the bases found in number 1, please? What's the shape? Triangles. So we have a base here, and we have a base here. So when you shade the bases, that's what you shade. And by the way, what that allows you to do are 2 things. When you're doing this, this, and this, right off the bat, what is that? 9.11 meters. Because it's the distance between the bases. It's the distance between the bases. Do I have the ability to find the area of the base in that respect, Alex? Yes, but I would have to use Pythagorean's theorem. Because right now I have the 4.5, which is this. I have 3.6, which is that, and this I do not know. And to find the area of that triangle, I would have to do base times height divided by 2. I don't have the height, so then I have to do Pythagorean's theorem to find it. Brendan?
Actually,
Okay.
I was going to ask a random question, like, how do you...
No, ask.
It isn't relating to this, though.
Okay. Alrighty.
To another math equation.
Ciara, where are the bases on number 2? The circles on each end, right? By the way, if I'm going to find this for the circle, what is the perimeter of the base of a circle, Hatai? It's the circumference. The perimeter of this is actually the circumference of the circle, which we can calculate from either the diameter or the radius. Get it? But I still want the bases shaded every single time. I want the bases shaded every single time because it makes finding the distance between the bases very, very easy. Number 3.
So are we just supposed to be shading the bases for this?
Yes. Not yet. Well, you're going to do calculations, but I want you shading the base first. Number 3. Someone go mark. I'll get you a highlighter. Jackson, come mark the bases for number 3, please. It doesn't matter. It's okay. No, it's okay. You already blew it. Yeah, it's not going to work. Hold. Stop. Okay, ready? Now go.
You have to be tall to do it.
He does not. He's fine. Okay. Okay, is he right that those are the bases?
No.
He is actually right.
Yes. Let's go.
If I don't tell you where the bases are, you may pick either any base set that you want as long as they're opposite and congruent. Are his two sides opposite and congruent? Then they absolutely could represent the bases.
Like there's 3 or 4 bases.
However, well, there are actually how many sets of bases? There are 3 sets of bases. I could have also chosen this one and this one.
Or the top and the top.
Now, here's the problem with the top and the bottom, and I'll show you. If they let you choose the bases and you're shading the top and the bottom, this is what it ends up looking like. There's the top, and there's the bottom. Right?
It's green.
When given the choice on a rectangular prism, do not choose top and bottom, choose the ends, because it'll be easier to shade and differentiate between the two. Any questions on this? Here's what you're going to do today. You've got one worksheet, and then I'm going to lay out shapes. So I'm going to give you a worksheet. The worksheet, you need to go ahead and turn in today. It is classwork. When you're done with the worksheet, you are to pick 2 objects from my list of potential objects. Okay? You are going to cut them out and build them. On one side of each of the 2 that you build, I want your name, I want faces, edges, and vertices, and then I want you to test it using Euler's formula on one of the sides of the shape that you choose. And that's it. Bennett?
Should they all work if it actually fits the shape?
They should. So I guess we'll see if they do. Because just like we learned on the warm-up, sometimes we think we know the right number, but we don't. Okay? He's back there bothering people. You're fired. He is. He's a gang leader, I heard. You might want to research that. Okay? Lives in, yeah, they call it El Chapo! Okay. Okay, wait. 5. Okay. So, I'm going to pass this out first. Here's what I want to see on this worksheet. Okay? I want you to shade the bases that you choose to use, and then I want you to identify capital B, capital P, and little h. What?
The answer to 4 is 6, right?
It's just 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So the answer to 4 is 6, right?
17, yes. Okay. Okay. Any questions?
Just a matter of what we see in the quiz.
What?
Alright.